What would you do if the thing you loved most was also the thing that could take your life?
Der Tod ist was jeder Mensch mit hat.
In a world where your profession is not only a dream, but a deadly reality. Where only 1 in a million makes it all the way to the top.
Ich glaube, das Leben ist erst für die meisten Menschen erkannt wichtig.
Puts him on the podium once again.
It's not been a good weekend for Niki.
Would you walk away to protect yourself and your loved ones? Or would that mean giving up on the very thing that gives your life purpose?
Weil sie wissen, dass sie sterben müssen.
Lauda is out of this final race.
Peterson dead, DePaye dead, Regazzoni paralyzed from the waist down.
You saw people who didn't make mistakes still getting killed. Going more than 200 miles an hour. What are you thinking?
I think about my family, I think about my wife, my kids.
Well, the desire to go faster and faster all the time, and as many drivers do, we are exposing our lives, they are consistent.
Formula One, a beloved sport that attracts millions of people every year, for good reason. In almost every way, it's extreme. The cars have over 1,000 horsepower, enabling speeds up to 370 kilometers an hour. Each race is about 2 hours long, and often you're under pure adrenaline the whole time.
I lose up to 4 kilos in the race in an hour and 45 minutes. It's just incredibly physical.
I didn't even notice that I had a broken leg.
To perform under those conditions and to be a successful driver, you have to be extremely capable, not only physically, but mentally.
Being able to just get the maximum out of the car without overdoing it. In other words, be able to drive the car at the limit.
One of the most important skills is evaluating risks in fractions of a second. You have to decide if the risk is worth the potential reward and base your actions on that thought. This means when to brake, when to accelerate, and when to overtake.
So find the line where you just stay on the edge.
Many believe that this split-second decision-making sets apart good drivers from great drivers. And if we talk about great drivers, there are many who've been exceptionally good at racing, but only a handful who've had a profound impact on the sport itself and shaped it. And one person who must be named in that context is Niki Lauda.
Niki is part of the Ferrari legend. The simple rules of the Lauda system. There can only be one winner.
He is also a living legend. He is not only a great champion, but he is a man of great courage.
Where's the taxi?
Niki Lauda is one of the most known drivers ever to this day. He's been a respected staple for the sport for many reasons. His incredible story as an F1 driver is one of them. Starting off at his early age, Lauda's family, who had a well-running company going, wanted him to join the family business rather than follow the dangerous and unconventional idea of racing. But Lauda's tendency to take risks showed itself early. Not only did he commit to start his career as a professional racing driver, but he also took out 2 huge bank loans. One of those was used to secure a place at the BRM, British Racing Motors. A smart decision. Shortly after he joined the BRM, his undeniable talent caught the attention of the Ferrari Racing Group and of the founder Enzo Ferrari himself. And by 1974, with Lauda being only 25 years old, he was an official part of the Ferrari team and on the best way to become a championship-winning driver. Which was exactly what happened 1 year later, where he won the 1975 World Championship title.
He was World Championship material from the moment he joined the Ferrari team.
Lauda proved to be almost unstoppable.
Early on, he proved that he had an exceptional technical understanding of cars, management of tire wear, and fuel efficiency, and he used that understanding to improve his performance on the racetrack.
Higher one, all the steering part is more sensitive.
Yeah.
Immediately you turn the wheel, it comes.
It's much better, but you know, we have to go halfway. I mean, one day, you still...
Lauda's skill as a driver was great, but the team he had behind him gave him what he needed to perform. It was no secret that Ferrari at that time was one of the best, if not the best, racing team. The 312T chassis with its 3-liter flat 12 engine designed by technical genius Mauro Foggieri was a masterpiece of a race car. So seeing these two 312Ts at the front of the field was a common sight in 1975.
The Ferraris were fast, if fragile. They monopolized the front row of the grid at Monaco.
Chi va fortissimo, lui ha guidato molto bene questo anno, l'organizzazione della squadra Ferrari è andato molto bene, ma c'è una netta differenza tra i motori.
Towards the end of the season, Lauda was one of the best performing drivers, so surely the season of 1976 should be promising. As the season of 1976 started, Lauda was a renowned and established driver for Ferrari. He was consistent and would finish races at top positions most races. Because of his great performance, he started off as one of the favorites for the title of the 1976 champion. Looking at his first races, this was something not unlikely to happen, as Lauda was winning races in Brazil, South Africa and Belgium, making him the biggest hurdle for other drivers. The only serious competitor Lauda had at that time was a new British driver that had replaced the two-time champion Emerson Fittipaldi at McLaren. And the name of that driver was James Hunt.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Hunt.
You're still extremely fast. How do you do it?
Big balls.
Daring, successful, attractive.
James Hunt.
James Hunt.
James Hunt.
Motor racing's George Best, who doesn't always give the pat answer.
James, how much does this victory mean to you?
9 points, $20,000 and a lot of happiness.
He was always a rebel.
Yes.
Yes.
Always the centre of attraction, but under his devil-may-care manner, he was deadly serious about getting to the top.
You just want to get a level. So if I say shucks and all that sort of stuff, oh dear. Well, I'll cancel it then. Can we rub that out?
Hunt was quite the opposite of Niki Lauda. While Lauda was the calculating, rather quiet brain behind the wheel, Hunt was the impulsive, flamboyant rockstar. But besides his charismatic character, Hunt had an incredibly fast and aggressive driving style, often resulting in spectacular accidents, giving him the nickname Hunt the Shunt. And his playboy image seemed to contrast with the prim and proper atmosphere of McLaren at that time.
A charming but deadly boy racer with a weakness for the opposite sex.
How remarkable. Can you give me a cigarette? Can I grab that cigarette off you? Thanks.
But Hunt soon proved to be a competitor not to sleep on, claiming pole position for the first race of the new season.
He was always competitive and always very focused on something he wanted to do. James was a sportsman through and through. He never played team games. His sports were all solitary. And he was very single-minded, and he knew what he wanted. He wanted to be world champion.
His exceptional results on the racetrack continued, often resulting in a shared position on the podium with Lauda. But unlike other rivalries in F1, the relationship between Hunt and Lauda was based on mutual respect and goodwill.
So in Formula 1 there are no friends. Basically they're all trying to win, and friendship is not the case. But some guys are more sympathetic than the others. And James was certainly one I would drink a beer after the race, because he was a nice guy.
How much have you got in hand?
Well, I had to work very hard for the first half of the race. I thought Niki was very brave, you know, he drove really well.
And during the season of 1976, the competitive friendship evolved into an intense battle, with many people believing that the title would be decided between those two drivers.
Niki started doing the winning, and he's kept the habit, and I've been just behind him. But it only, it just needs the straw to break the camel's back.
And while the iconic P34, the first and only six-wheeled F1 car ever, would be the talk of the town for a weekend, it was Hunt and Lauda and McLaren and Ferrari who would grab all the attention. With some ups and downs in the performance of the cars of McLaren and Ferrari, no major events were interrupting the already exciting development of this new season. But this would change on the 1st of August at the German Grand Prix. The Nürburgring, the fastest, most demanding and most dangerous racetrack at that time.
It's 14.7 miles round, goes up and down thousands of feet, it's got hundreds of corners.
Widely considered to be the toughest, most dangerous and most demanding purpose-built track in the world.
It was a pre-health and safety era. Racing was dangerous, it said so on the back of every ticket, and it was part of what it was.
Nobody of us wants to die, I mean, everybody wants to live. We don't do it for the thrill of the danger, we do it for the thrill of speed, sensation, being on the limit.
I mean, keep in mind, we lost a driver every weekend. There was no room for mistakes at Spa or the Nürburgring. We had had too many drivers killed.
I have as much as you can have to a racing car. I think you should know as well that sometimes there are things happening which you can't calculate, which you can't think of, and they happen. I like the car, and I like to go over 100 miles an hour. I like to take chances. I like to take the risk.
Start of the German Grand Prix on the famous Nürburgring track.
You have to be ready basically for everything. Psychologically, you should never get into the areas where you don't feel well about driving or being anxious or you don't feel well.
Couple minutes into the race on the second lap, one of the most defining and tragic moments in F1 history took place.
He suffered the most appalling injuries.
Lauda lost control of his car and crashed into an embankment. The fuel tank exploded, setting the car and Lauda, who had lost consciousness, on fire.
Fire is one of the most deadly hazards a racing driver can face.
This horrible scenario lasted for several moments. Lauda was trapped in an 800-degree Fahrenheit burning car for almost a minute before being rescued by fellow drivers Bertie Fischer, Guy Edwards, Arturo Merzario and Harald Ertel, who pulled him out of his car, risking their own lives to rescue him.
I have no memory of the accident at all because I hit so hard and was in fire so long that there's no memory whatsoever. It's blocked out, and the memory came back in the first hospital or second hospital hours after the accident.
Lauda was severely injured. He suffered burning injuries covering parts of his head and his hands. His collarbone was broken, and the toxic fumes from the molten glass fiber and the extinguishing foam he had inhaled had both seared and poisoned his lungs.
It nearly cost him his life.
The Austrian received horrific burns.
Lauda was hovering on the brink of death.
And the initial prognosis was that he had little chance of survival. The nature of his injuries was such that a priest was called to administer the last rites.
Lauda, fighting for his life in the hospital, left speculations about how the Grand Prix was supposed to be continued. Ferrari soon signed Carlos Reutemann as a substitute for Lauda to fill the gap he had left behind. And Hunt was now in prime position to win the title.
Hunt takes full advantage in the next two races.
And with Niki Lauda, his main opponent, likely to be in hospital for some time, his chances of winning the title are pretty good.
And that marked the start of an extraordinary recovery, which proved that Lauda could be every bit as determined off the track as he could on it.
With the support of his wife and his mentality to win, only 42 days after his accident that nearly cost him his life, Lauda returned to F1. During his coma and rehab, Lauda had missed 2 races, but that didn't mean he lost his chance to win the title. Looking at the points, Hunt was still 13 points behind Lauda, so victory over his rival Hunt was technically still possible. Lauda was still on his way. And in his first race back at the Italian Grand Prix, Lauda drove an admirable, gritty race and finished 4th. This race has justifiably entered the annals of history as one of the greatest sporting comebacks of all time.
I think everybody who has driven race cars or know what it's about having had an accident is that when you have an accident, physically you can be alright fairly quickly if you have good doctors, but mentally is the problem. To force yourself to get back to the style of driving I did before. That means to reach all the limit or sometimes even be able to go over the limit.
And after one 0-point race in Canada, he finished third in the USA, giving him another 4 points.
Lauda prepares to go back on the track to race against the clock.
Still, nobody could tell how the season might turn out. First, because Lauda went through multiple operations and skin transplantations at that time, and was still recovering from his severe injuries. But second, because he was driving a Ferrari which was not known to be capable of competing for victories long enough. Hunt, on the other hand, was confident. He finished first in Canada and the USA, and his McLaren M23 was known to be highly competitive, even over a period of multiple races. Looking at the points, Lauda had 68 points while James Hunt had 65, giving Lauda a promising 3-point lead.
Niki Lauda's fight back from the burns that had led to him being given the last rites in Germany was a magnificent example of determination and heroism.
So it all came down to the last race of the Grand Prix of 1976 in Japan. This race would ultimately decide over the championship title, it would end the rivalry between Lauda and Hunt, and it would make the most incredible comeback of all time if Niki Lauda would be able to win under these conditions.
Yes, it's Lauda versus Hunt for the World Championship.
The most bizarre season in the history of motorsport should reach its climax at the foot of the holy mountain, Mount Fuji, here in Japan.
This then is the clincher, the World Championship decider.
Of the most extraordinary season in the history of Formula One.
For the first time ever, the final race would be held in Japan. With Mount Fuji in the background, this movie-like season was coming down to a last standoff. Only 3 points separate the Austrian who refused to die and the British newcomer who had proven his right to be on the podium. For Hunt to win the championship, he must either win the race or finish with Lauda at least 2 positions behind him.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the mathematics are pretty irrelevant. I've got to win.
For me it's quite easy because this year I had more troubles surviving with my life than to fight for a championship. So the championship for me is nothing, it is important, but it's easy. I think the problems I run through. So I will do my best here and I hope to win it, and that's all.
Determined to win it, so in order to do that, the best way for me to do it is to win the race here.
In F1, the weather conditions play a huge role in both performance and safety. While high temperatures like in Bahrain will increase tire wear and may lead to an overheating of the engine, colder temperatures will affect braking performance and fuel efficiency. But the worst condition for a driver to be racing in is rain. Heavy rain will take your visibility completely. Every position behind the first place is sprayed with a dense white stream of water, making it extremely hard to brake in the right moment. Not to mention the risks of a slippery track where you can't see your opponents or the track itself. And on the 24th of October, it was pouring in Japan.
Race day brought the rain.
It couldn't be worse at the Fuji circuit. Pouring rain, thick mist, and it's a delayed start. So, is the Japanese Grand Prix on or off?
With rain that strong, the first moments of a race are crucial. They will determine if a driver will have to race with a visibility of only a few meters or have the incredible advantage of a clear sight. Lauda, who was still recovering from his near-fatal crash at the Nürburgring, had a heightened awareness of the risks and therefore was deeply concerned about the safety of starting the race. A discussion among the drivers and the officials was held about if the race should be postponed or not. Lauda and other drivers, including James Hunt, were eager to not take the risk and rather delay the race.
The conditions, he said, are suicidal.
Presumably they regarded the conditions far too dangerous to contend with.
On the other hand, this was an incredibly important event, with the World Championship title on the line, so others voted against postponing it. Bernie Ecclestone, the commercial rights holder for Formula One at the time, was also involved in the decision-making process. The 1976 Grand Prix in Japan was planned to be the first ever Formula One race to be broadcasted live and Ecclestone was torn between his role as a race promoter and head of the Constructors Association. Delaying or cancelling the event would mean harm both economic and political interests, as this event was going to be a landmark moment for the sport. So after some discussions and concerns, Ecclestone ultimately made the decision to proceed with the race.
And eventually the organisers decided the race would start.
And with some drivers more enthusiastic than others, they finally got underway.
Electric tension here at Fuji. And there's Mario Andretti in pole position, James Hunt alongside him. On row 2 of the grid, there is Niki Lauda.
For Lauda, this was the best grid position since returning from his injury. With these pre-race conditions, the grand finale to the 1976 season in Formula 1 did not disappoint its dramatic development. With all eyes on the track, the race started. Hunt had a great start and was able to swiftly take the lead. Watson, who started 4th, was able to position himself right behind Hunt on 2nd place.
It looks as if James Hunt's in front. John Watson on the right-hand side of your picture there.
Mario Andretti, who started 1st, maintained a competitive 3rd position.
But it's James Hunt in the lead, Watson 2nd and Andretti 3rd.
But where was Niki Lauda? Right after exiting the first corner, he fell behind into the midfield and was not able to hold his promising 3rd position he started with.
Niki Lauda back in about 5th place.
With some believing he was having technical malfunctions, immediate doubt of the winning chances of Niki Lauda arose. Was it too early for him to come back to racing?
And look at that lead about, must be 4 seconds there.
In the first lap, Hunt built a 4-second lead with a near slide off the track, which he skillfully managed to recover from.
James Hunt twitching, look at that. Almost out of control. Now he mustn't do that too many times.
It was the 2nd lap at Nürburgring, it was the 2nd lap in Japan, when something unexpected happened.
Lauda is in the pitch. There's a conference, a cockpit conference going on there.
Niki Lauda has pulled into the pit in front of us. Niki Lauda, the world champion, has pulled into the pit.
Lauda was driving into the box, without telling his team for what reason.
Now what is happening? Well, this makes Hunt's chances much stronger, of course.
Should the tires be changed? Was he involved into a collision damaging his wing? What was supposed to happen in that moment?
Yes, this amazing 1976 World Championship Series is maintaining its drama.
The whole world was holding its breath, as with each second, Hunt was getting ahead more and more, closer and closer to his championship title. Every moment meant that Lauda would have to fight harder to get close to him again. But before anybody knew what was happening, Lauda stepped out of his car, eliminating the chance of him to win this race, the championship title, his duel against his friend and rival, James Hunt.
Niki Lauda, leading the World Championship, is out of the race, but amazingly enough, there's nothing wrong with his car.
Daniele Odetto, former racing manager for Ferrari, asked him what was wrong, to which Lauda just replied, "I don't want to die again." Odetto understood immediately and asked him if this should be communicated as an error in his car, but Lauda rejected and told him to stick to the truth.
When you are a normal racing driver and not affected by an accident, you have reserves. So that means your level of risk-taking is higher than you, like in my case, you just come out of death and had everything happening to you. And then a couple of races later, you have to face this more difficult situation with the water and rain and risk going up. And at that time, I was not prepared to take this extra risk because of the accident.
It turned out that several drivers decided to not race under the given conditions. Larry Perkins got into his box just before Lauda, then Carlos Pace, and Emerson Fittipaldi followed some laps later. With Lauda out of the race, Hunt must finish 3rd or better to make at least 4 points and win the championship title. And his performance in this race was incredible.
Unpleasant it may be, but he's out to do the job of driving a racing car, and it's something he does supremely well.
Because he secured his first place so early, he was able to maintain a good pace.
He's trying to drive inside James Hunt. Hunt cuts across the orange. This time there's no getting back. But is he going straight on? And he's spinning.
And Brad Miller spins. Hunt's clear. Hunt's retaken the lead. This is sensational.
But with only 5 laps to go, Hunt's tires were making him problems. Because the weather was clearing up, his rain tires were overheating.
What must he be thinking right now? Will the car hold together? Is the engine still holding its oil pressure? Are the tyres still holding all their air?
But Hunt just kept on racing without going into the box or driving through the puddles on the track to cool the tires, which his team suggested to him.
One of the techniques you could do is cool them down by running in puddles deliberately on the straights.
But as one tire had blown and another one had been punctured, Hunt somehow managed to get into his box just in time.
And Hunt is in the pits in second place. And if he drops below 4th, if he goes out, his World Championship is going to be in danger. What an incredible change of fortune.
And James Hunt is in the pits. Look at that. Left front tyre, right front tyre. No tread on it at all. And the other one is flat. They're going to change all 4. You hear the hammers going there.
And after a long pit stop, he got back into the race 5th. If he kept this position, it wouldn't be enough to win the title, and he knew that. With now only 3 laps on the clock, Hunt passed Jones to secure the 4th position.
And look at that! Hunt going past Alan Jones. James Hunt has gone past Alan Jones.
After 72 nerve-wracking rounds of racing, Hunt crossed the finish line, thinking he was in 4th place. What he didn't know, Claire Regazzoni had lost control of his car due to the slippery track and was out of the race before he finished.
And Regazzoni is out of the race, so now Hunt moves up to 3rd position.
And that made Hunt 3rd. He had won the championship.
If one is really honest, I think the only way justice would be really done would be an impossibility if Niki and I were somehow to be able to share the championship this year. Quite honestly, we've both done a lot, been through a lot, and in terms of what's happened on the track, we certainly, both of us, done enough to have won the championship easily.
Said at the same time, at the time there, if anybody should get a championship, then I'm happy it's James, yeah, because I liked him and we were not bodies, but we were at least sympathetic. So I think we took care of each other from the heart in a very nice way, which in these days the heart was never shown in Formula One.
Lauda's decision to withdraw sparked debates among fans and F1 officials, with many questioning whether he made the right call or not.
Do you have any regrets about your racing career? From running the final race in 1976 or pulling out of it? No regrets there?
No.
None.
I would do everything again. Because if I would not have had the accident, I might have had this little extra reserve you need to drive in these dreadful conditions of Fuji where the circuit was flooded and it was impossible to race.
A single point decided over the championship title and Hunt had won it. The 1976 season was marked by fierce rivalry between 2 of the sport's most iconic figures. Hunt, the brash British driver for McLaren, and Lauda, the meticulous Austrian driver for Ferrari, battled in a way that captivated audiences worldwide. Lauda's near-fatal crash at the Nürburgring in August, followed by his miraculous return just 6 weeks later, added a layer of drama that few could have anticipated. What would have happened if Regazzoni hadn't slipped off the track in the final lap? What if it hadn't rained in Japan that day? What if Niki Lauda hadn't suffered that accident at the Nürburgring? Questions that cannot be answered. And what for? Fact is, Hunt has been his best version of a driver and proved to be successful with that. Lauda overcame multiple life-threatening challenges, has proved doctors and priests wrong, returning to the sport he loved after only 42 days. He ended an incredible season with 1 point behind the leader, despite missing 2 races. And the final race in Japan serves as a reminder of the passion and dedication that defines motorsport. It was a race that tested limits, pushed boundaries, and ultimately changed the course of Formula One history forever. When Lauda pulled into the box, he made a conscious decision. His love to life outweighed his ambition to win. Many believe that evaluating risks separates good F1 drivers from great F1 drivers. And on the day of the final race, Niki Lauda proved once again how great of a driver he really was.
Niki probably is certainly the most determined driver. It's very difficult when you've done as much as Niki Lauda has done after what he's been through. He had to be so dedicated to come back after his accident, which for me was the most courageous achievement in modern sports history.
How do you want to do it? Do you want to go at a steady pace for 70 years or whatever, or do you want to go flat out for 10 years and then relax? And I rather like doing it that way.